atheists that are well versed in the world of philosophy, like the atheist philosopher Michael Ruse, who says, quote, "I think Dawkins is ignorant about just every aspect of philosophy and theology, and it shows." To give you two examples. First, the critique of religious experience. Dawkins talks about, quote, "the brain's simulation software," end of quote, "being capable of constructing visions and visitations." So he noticed that our brain can play around with us, so we experience things that are not real. And then he concludes, this is really all that needs to be said about personal religious experiences. But there is no logic in that. You cannot go from some religious experiences can be caused by the brain to the conclusion, therefore all religious experiences are caused by the brain. That is an invalid reasoning. Second example, their critique of religion. The new atheists are very critical towards religion, and so am I. This is an area where we share a lot of perspectives. There are terrible things going on in the world of religion. But from the fact that much religion is evil, there is no logical way to, therefore, all religion is evil. That is not a valid line of reasoning. But the new atheists are taking that line by showing that there are many instances of destructive religion. They conclude, therefore, religion is the root of all evil. Now, it's easy to see that you could turn this argument on its head and point out that much evil has been connected with atheism, and then draw the conclusion all atheism is evil. Well, it's, of course, an invalid argument. Thirdly, the new atheists have an outdated view of science. I will give you two examples. The new atheists claim that they have science on their side and that taking science seriously will lead to atheism. My first example for where they have an outdated view is that it's not true that science and God is incompatible. Historically, modern science arose within the Christian Europe and was motivated by the Christian faith. All historians of science agree on that. Huge numbers of leading scientists today are Christians. For example, Francis Collin, a world leading in genetic research, he was the leader of the Human Genome Project. He came to faith in God because of what he saw within science. My second example is science in itself cannot answer the ultimate questions. The new atheists define science wrongly. Science deals with nature. It helps us to understand the natural world, but it cannot deal with the supernatural. And God is a question about the supernatural. Science deals with physics, not with metaphysics. And here the new atheists are misusing science. In reality, both theism, belief in God, and atheism is built on faith. Neither of them are proved scientifically. The real issue here is what worldview, Christianity or atheism or a third worldview, what worldview gives us the best explanation of what we observe about the world, including all the scientific observations. What worldview gives the best explanation of what we observe in the world? So far, I've tried to show that the new atheists, in their criticism of belief in God, they are not valid. Now, let me use the rest of my time to give arguments for Christianity. So my fourth point is arguments for Christianity. First, the origin of the universe. Stephen Hawking says, and Stephen Hawking is generally regarded as one of the leading scientists of our time, he says, today virtually everyone agrees that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Now, this has revolutionized our understanding of the universe. The universe is not eternal, it has come into being. But from nothing comes nothing. If the universe came into being, it's natural to say it has a cause. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Now science tells us that the universe began to exist. And therefore, there's reason to believe that the universe itself had a cause. Secondly, the design of the universe. Another revolutionizing aspect of modern science is the identification of the fine-tuning of the universe. They have identified more than 50 constants in the Big Bang, which were fine-tuned in order to make life possible. In the last 25 years, science has become increasingly aware that the universe is finely tuned at its origin and in its unfolding. The fundamental laws of nature, the very precise and particular calibration of its various forces, turn out to be exactly balanced and orchestrated, so that the merest nudge to any of them would result in a lifeless universe, or perhaps no universe at all. Why was the universe fine-tuned in such a way that life today can be possible? Was it chance? The odds are just incredible. Or was it really design, someone fine-tuning? I think the argument leads in that direction, that there was an intelligence behind it. Thirdly, man as a personal being. If there is no God and we try to understand our own identity on this earth, what can we say? Well, from the beginning then you have the universe, you have matter and energy, and by chance man, biological life, and then man has arose. What are we then? We are the impersonal in complex form. But basically, we are matter and energy. What then about human freedom and human love? What then is the basis for human dignity and human worth? Well, there is no freedom in energy and matter. Nature do not have freedom and responsibility, but we have. If there is no God, there is no basis for the most important human characteristics. But if there is a God, a personal God, then the personal is an eternal quality. And it's possible to understand man as a person, created in the image of God, and we then have a basis for the personal qualities of man, for his freedom, for his love, for his creativity. Fourthly, the basis for ethics. All human beings, atheists and theists alike, religious people and non-religious people, can show goodness, have the capacity for love. The question I want to pose is not about our ability to do good, but what is the basis for that which we call good? On the atheist view, we have arisen by chance in an amoral universe. There is no moral norm beyond us. Morality has just evolved because it has some survival value. But it has no factual basis, human morality. As atheist philosopher Kai Nielsen says, we have not been able to show that reason requires the moral point of view, or that all really rational persons should not be individual egoists or classical amoralists. Reason doesn't decide here. The picture I've painted for you is not a pleasant one. Reflection on it depresses me. Pure practical reason, even with a good knowledge of the facts, will not take you to morality. So as an atheist, he says there is no real basis for morality. Of course, the whole picture changes if there is a God. Then there is a moral norm standing above the human being, and our moral reasoning is valid, is meaningful. If there is a God, then there is a basis for morality. Fifthly, and lastly, Jesus from Nazareth. In our own history, there is a person with a quality in life, with a laser-sharp teaching, and with a love for people that is just, in my view, unmatched